on board, like Sigil Runner maybe, Tour Guide, Panthara. There's a lot of smallish minions you can just charge into and hopefully rack up some extra damage.
Yeah, I'd agree, especially versus Garrote Rogue. I feel like Rhino is a must in order to actually race them. It's a way to still get the win even if they get the Octobot starts, just like we saw okasinnsuke do versus Dawn yesterday. He'll be faced up against more of a controlling opponent though in Glory's Delete Warlock, which I'm also interested to see because I recall distinctly when okasinnsuke was playing Shadow Priest versus Quest Shaman, another aggro position, that he would be very cautious into things like Perpetual Flame. I wonder how much he is going to have the likes of Soul Rend and removal from Glory on the mind, because there's only so much you can do to play around.
And here we go, starting things off with one of the most key inclusions, one of the most overlooked inclusions by myself, I think, is the Armor Vendor. Against these aggro matchups, it's obviously so backbreaking, one of the best anti-aggro cards in the game with the body and the armor. But it kind of has a lot of splash damage in the meta, like even against Garrote Rogue, for example, getting yourself above the 32 damage breakpoint or the 33 damage breakpoint with the dagger very often does actually just mess them up and delay them for a turn. So it's one of the main reasons I'm actually a fan of this deck right now, is just because of how powerful it is in the meta.
And you can already see the effects here for okasinnsuke. Not that it challenges the Intrepid Initiate immediately, but because okasinnsuke wanted to possibly buff it with the Adorable Infestation, the 1/1 is then challenged by the Armor Vendor, which means that okasinnsuke doesn't necessarily get 2 targets for the Wriggling Horror. It's already starting to show the upsides here. Glory, of course, doesn't immediately start with Quest, but he's fine. He very likely plays it on turn 3 because this looks like a relatively clean Drain Soul.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're accepting that it's just 2 mana deal 3. You're not getting the healing in this instance. It's a good old Dark Bomb here for the glory days of Warlock way back when. But it's more than good enough. As you said, the quest into tapping, Raised Dead to get yourself another Armor Vendor as well. This is a premium start for Glory.
Yeah, and okasinnsuke is forced onto the hero power here because if he goes Wriggling Horror, it buffs nothing and just dies straight away into the Armor Vendor. It's already a nightmare, and okasinnsuke, I think, as early as now, has to switch his entire game plan to getting back-to-back Rhinos from Warsong Wrangler, hopefully, and this True Aim Crescent could maybe help with that plan.
I mean, it's kind of an interesting interaction because there's obviously the snake to get rid of it, but for Gloria, I was kind of liking the idea of actually just playing the Rostrot Viper on turn 3. It's just a 3/4. I know they have removal to do it, but if they spend, I mean, even then it's not that clean, right? If they have aim shot or quick shot, it's not a clean kill. It does make it a little bit difficult for them to actually play minions onto the board.
Definitely an interesting way to go about it. It means that you're not necessarily delaying Quest because you can still play Quest and tap the next turn. But I kind of like weaving in the taps where Glory can, because he still does eventually have to get his own game plan online. And there is that upside of it still being able to eat a weapon that I think Glory will go for here. That's the only weapon outside of Rinling's Rifle in the deck. And between that and Rinling's, I feel like the True Aim into Rhino is potentially even scarier. It depends though, because Glory might not even play more than 1 minion.
I agree. And I mean, even if you do play it, there's a very good chance that you can just Raise Dead it to take out the Rinling's Rifle, if that's necessary as well. It's just getting ahead on board, which I think Glory is very happy with because his hand is just full of value right now. The double Raise Dead and obviously the hero power to just keep chewing through it. I think he's approaching this very, very well and is being rewarded for it. This is just a super clean game so far.
And now he should be hyper aware of the possibility of Rhino, and if he wants to strand that in the hand, he could actually just go for it, trade these both in, and Mortal Coil his own Snake. Now that you've gotten backfired, there's better ways to spend your mana, though. It's alright if the Rhino gets some damage going through, because the Raise Deads are giving Glory more HP at this point because he gets the Armor Vendor back.
It's actually true, yeah. The Armor Vendor, the quest completion as well, that can be so impactful with double Raise Dead to just instantly complete it alongside a tap. I'm not seeing much that okasinnsuke can do right now. He needs to pull out a miracle here.
Yeah. I mean, that's as good of a Rhino target you're ever going to get, I think. From Glory's perspective, this turn, he had to go for backfire, so there wasn't really an option to leave an empty board. okasinnsuke should not take that for granted. Cash in the 6 damage while he can, and try to get Barak from the tracking, maybe, and then try and go over the top with a full burst game plan.
Makes sense to me. Okay, so Quest will go up to 6 out of 7 with this unstable Shadow Blast. And so you can just complete it next turn, I suppose. Yeah, go for the weapon here and the Armor Vendor. Perfect use of your mana, leading up into, as we said, yet more health gain, yet more board control, everything you could ask for in the matchup.
The one thing okasinnsuke does have going for him, though, is that Glory is relatively far from that 10-card breakpoint where the big healing starts to come through with the Bloodshard Bristlebacks. And okasinnsuke is not in a position where he has to play into Soul Rend anymore to win the game. I think a lot of the direction he'll take from this point on depends on what will come off this first tracking. I do think the turn looks like tracking, and if he gets full burst, he could just go for Marcel Piercing Shot it and just commit fully to no board game plan. I want an aim shot here.
Yeah, I think I do too. I was looking at the Neophyte to potentially try and go for board plus distraction, but it's just not there. A 5-mana Soul Rend is still perfectly fine for Glory. You'd very happily chew that up.
Okay, okasinnsuke is still going to commit to the board partially here, which means Glory gets a 4-target Soul Rend and a tap in. So that means next turn the Bloodshard Bristleback will be active, but okasinnsuke can still not play a minion to make it inconvenient for Glory to actually target anything. And it's starting to get, you know, just a little bit scary for Glory here because he doesn't actually have any other healing effects in hand than the Bristleback. He does have the Tamsin, but he already used a Drain Soul a while ago, and the Touches and the other Drain Soul are in the bottom 14, which he might even burn some of them if he does go for the Rend.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, not taking the Soul Rend here. Or, okay, just burning exactly enough cards?
Yeah, so this line, like, still gets him down to 11. The other line would have as well, but the difference is it's one more card in hand, right?
Yeah.
He cycled a Mortal Coil for a random card in his deck.
Does mean that he can't go raise that into another Armor Vendor here, which is the downside, of course, but I suppose if he's very precious about the rest of his deck, like there's still double touch of the Nathrazim, a Drain Soul in there as well. There's a lot of good cards left in deck.
That's exactly what he's looking for. Now, okasinnsuke will be aware of the possibility of Armor Vendor, but there's not really much he can do to play around it, right? You can just count up, okay, if they go Armor Vendor and shoot it with Bristleback, that's plus 10. So in an average case scenario, okasinnsuke needs to deal 23, which right now he has 5 from Piercing and Marsul. He has Aim Shot Hero Power for 7. That's only 12, and that's happening over the course of 2 turns. I guess with the Quick Shot, we could make it 15, but he's not going to get this done next turn, given that Glory has healing.
Yeah, the Armor Vendor and the Bristlebacks, it's all going to be a little bit too much, and especially with that mana discount rolling in, like you can do the Armor Vendor and the Bristleback for 2 mana. You could then go tap plus Backfire to discount the hand again if you wanted to, once you've cleared out some of the cards. Like, there's just infinite mana to work with next turn for Glory.
Okay. Gets the Barrack, though. There is bordering infinite damage for okasinnsuke, though. The thing is, he does the damage a lot slower than Glory can get the healing. It depends, though, whether Glory can actually find the touch of the Nathrazim. okasinnsuke, I think, very smart to hold off on the Piercing Shot Marsul game plan. That would have, you know, done maximum damage in a short window, but he's very likely to have healing. So I prefer holding on to the Piercing Shot to maybe deal with the Bristleback itself, because you have to kill that. It has lifesteal.
Okay, so Armor Vendor tap. You need to clear out some space from hand in order to play the Backfire if you want to reduce your hand again, which could come from Panthara. Yeah. Oh no, wait, that just refills your hand. I mean, either way, it gets you towards the completion, I suppose, and then you can trade.
Quite clever from Glory here. I was looking at the potential of a Tamsin Drain Soul turn, but he just knows there's no way okasinnsuke can deal 17 on 8 mana. And so he can just get the Viper down, play some minions, and very likely preserve other targets for Tamsin Drain Soul. And in the meantime, okasinnsuke already has to respect the Bristleback. Meanwhile, the Barrack is not really drawing anything that relevant anymore other than the other Quick Shot because he top-decked the other Aim Shot. The upside of drawing the Aim Shot, though, is that he doesn't have to spend 5 mana to draw it. So if we're just counting damage here, double Aim Shot, Hero Power is 12. And then next turn, Marsul Piercing Shot, Quick Shot is 8 plus another Hero Power. It's 22, but there is also this bristleback to be aware of. So he'll probably send one aim shot in there instead.
Yeah, you may as well just shoot it one time because it's just going to gain back the 3 health anyway.
So aim shot there, another aim shot face and hero power. That's maximizing damage. You could use piercing shot on the 3/3 instead, but I'm worried about the mana efficiency. I guess it still works out with 2 aim shots and hero power, but like he's missing 2 max damage, right? Because he's not aiming it at a 1 health minion.
And I think here for Glory, this should be a pretty simple affair. Drawing the touch there is actually not great because he can't double it up on the Tamsin. But you can still go Tamsin, Drain Soul, your Snake, and then touch the Natterazim at the end. Drain Soul, I guess, one of your Panthers as well. There's just a lot of healing left.
If he wants to be like completely precise about it, you don't have to use all the healing, right? Because it is blowing up his board. But he'll know that okasinnsuke's max damage output is quick shot hero power, which is 12. There might be some other breakpoint I'm not thinking of, but as long as he goes above 12, I don't think he can die from 9 mana from okasinnsuke. I think stop here looks pretty good, yeah, with the healing.
Yeah.
Gonna get the Tamsin and backfire down. Disconnect issue happening. Based on okasinnsuke's tweets, I feel like this is on okasinnsuke's side. Yesterday he was talking about how his internet misbehaves, especially at nighttime. Taking a good stretch break, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's still looking like he's going to be very dead once this game resumes because we've got Bloodshard Bristleback ready to go. That, of course, is going to provide any extra healing that was needed. Even just Tamsin on this turn, to be honest, at 16, I really don't think you're ever dead because, as you correctly laid out, the double aim shot, I think, should be pretty much all the damage that can be done. Taking a look at the list, I don't even think he has necessarily all too much more in terms of 1 mana damage spells, right? You're not running Wound Prey anymore, and the weapon's gone, so that really is just a pretty hard cap on 12 damage.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it. So Glory has nothing to worry about. Honestly, the secret is not a big deal. Even if he never sends any minion damage face, he can just win off of draws next turn. He's going to put himself to fatigue. Hand of Gul'dan is 1+2+3 damage. And then the natural draw 4, and then the tap itself 5, and then the 2 damage from the tap for a total of 17, not even counting minions.
Okay, nice.
So in short, okasinnsuke is very dead.
Does appear that way, doesn't it? Fatigue damage obviously won't be damaging Glory at this point, so you can't factor that in. If you get Demon Companion into Refa, then you're looking at 14. But even that Glory's played around.
I wonder.
Well, he can try to survive if he does have that 17 damage on board. Maybe if he isolates Tamsin. By the way, I'm not even sure what secret he took, but let's say best case scenario, is it freezing?
No, it's open the cages or whatever it's called.
Oh, okay, useless.
Yeah,
but maybe he can try to stop Glory from attacking. He hasn't attacked at all, right? So he can bluff a freezing potentially.
He's already attacked. I don't think there's any bluff value left. Yeah. This is from quite a while ago.
Well, I guess there's not lethal on board, right? Because if it is 17, it's... Oh wait, there is. It's 27.
Exact lethal?
Right? Yeah, on board. If I counted right. Just tap Hand of Gul'dan, ship everything face.
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree.
Oh, and the Tamsin just caught me.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. It's a trillion. Yeah, that's going to do it. okasinnsuke clearly forgetting that interaction as well. Otherwise, he would have surely traded into the Tamsin and maybe lived at 1 health, right? I think if that would have been the case. And then maybe could have got there instead. But of course, he wouldn't have dealt the damage. And there was still a Bristleback in hand. So it was essentially a lock either way. I don't think he was ever getting there.
Or he had all his bases covered for sure.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep, if he had gone for any measure of clearing and not killed Glory immediately, Glory then goes for using the Touch of the Nathrazim, because Okashinsuke would have put minions on board to do that, and the Blood Shard Bristleback, and then Glory simply gets there with another tap. Next turn, because let's say no minion damage even goes phase, it's still 17 even without the copied Hand of Gul'dan, and then the next draws would deal 6 and then 7, so it would just be lethal over 2 turns. Glory had navigated himself into a checkmate position, very, very cleanly done. And Okashinsuke, I think, did the best he could in terms of trying to maximize his damage. I might have been caster visioning at the time. I said you can just play around Soul Run from this point. He saw that he needed some measure of board damage to augment what he had from hand. But it's really all the legacy of that early armor vendor into Drain Soul, which stopped any of the early aggression from Okashinsuke.
Exactly, yeah. Imagine if that wasn't there, and even just like a 1-1 sticking, so that Wriggling Horror has extra buff targets, like it all compounds very, very quickly, and it all just comes at the cost of an extra 1-3 in your deck, which Gloria is getting rewarded for here. This delete version of Warlock seems to be still a very intriguing notion. I'm still not necessarily convinced that it's the best way to go in the metagame, because of the possibility of Rogue, how it fares into Demon Hunter now again, but specifically against aggro decks, be it Shadow Priest or the Face Hunter. I still think it gives you a much better chance of taking the win. But now, though, from Glory, we're going to see the Garrote Rogue, a matchup that we... I think there's some furious debate over in the European region between Raven and Sottle as to how this deck fares against Shadow Priest, where Raven's clearly wants to say it's a massive favorite, but feels like he'll be bullied, so says he thinks it's kind of okay against Shadow Priest. But I think against Face Hunter, it does become a little bit closer.
Yeah, I actually do think this is Rogue favored versus Face Hunter. Not by a lot, just a couple %. But basically, if you can find Octobot in the early game, there is a lot of pressure you can put online. Maybe that it still needs to be with a footnote that you then need to find field contact to not gas out.
Right.
But with the amount of card draw you're running, it is a reasonable proposition. Shadow Priest one, I'll reserve my own opinions for another broadcast, because I do think we're in agreement on that one.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, we're still looking for the Octobot to truly make this hand pop, but even outside of it, this is an okay hand. If that Swindle and Shroud play along, you could be looking at some pretty strong plays.
Could, but this opening curve for Glory is pretty challenging, right? Because I do think Neophyte is the best way to challenge the Intrepid Initiate here. It shuts down Okashinsuke's plausible next curve of another 1-drop plus spell, right? He might be forced on just spell here, which means that outside of Adorable Infestation, Glory ends up at 0 minion on either side of the board, which is good for Glory. But he having to use the coin here kind of wrecks Glory's next turn. He doesn't really have a good Swindle activator. Might just end up on Dagger, which is not awful, because then he can follow up with the Shroud of Concealment.
It's kind of interesting. I was still considering just double one there. They can obviously go Dagger plus Trade to take out a Volpatinger and an Initiate. And then you can follow up with the tracking, but I guess the problem is that you actually just run out of value, even if you're throwing all your threats down. If they're just value trading you there, you're going to lose out on your threats very quickly.
Okashinsuke does have a value-oriented option here in the middle, the Morsong Wrangler. I was going to say, I think the Mandrake's better just to give him a guaranteed curve play next turn, but he goes all the way in the other direction with the Demon Companion, which looks like he is going to go 1-1-1 next turn, and this Intrepid Initiate going face, absolutely. He's not under that much pressure from Rogue until they're able to get the Garrotes down. I think Okashinsuke is just going for maximum aggression here.
So here's the situation that Glory kind of knew he'd be in when he played the last turn. This is a very predictable outcome. I think you probably just end up on Dagger. I would say that's probably a better use of your mana than Swindle is on this turn. But he disagrees, going with the Step Plunderer. It obviously floats a mana, but it does just get him way ahead on board.
Right, I do like this line. It does float a mana, but I'm not sure how relevant the Dagger would be on this kind of board state, right, from Okashinsuke. Sure. Even if Glory traded down Dagger versus empty board turn 3, if Hunter just plays like a Mancrick or even their own Neophyte, you don't really have a good target for it. So I think this is fine for Glory. He's just not swindling in the near future. He's going Shroud and then maybe Kazakus.
Sounds good to me. I like it when you lay it out.
And the Neophyte here, low-key, still annoying for okasinnsuke. He wanted to go for the full wide-on-board game plan, which now means he has to choose between Demon Companion and Intrepid Initiate, because I still feel like the Volpertinker is a necessity here.
I mean, I hope for okasinnsuke's sake that his bad internet is not letting him see that he got Kolek here, which is a pretty bad one to get in this instance. You have to then just go Volpertinger, I guess, instead of the Intrepid Initiate, because that 1-2 is just absolutely terrible. And then you're still opening yourself up to a very clean value trade from the Neophyte.
Yeah, it is the worst outcome by a mile of the three companions here. This obviously is grating on both players' nerves. The disconnect, we talked about how that can really trip you up. Even if you retain all of your time, technically, because of the reconnect feature, just losing your train of thought for a couple seconds can be detrimental. It does mean that the dagger for Glory for the full board clear is kind of off curve. So I do prefer just going Shroud here.
Yeah, I agree. Imagine if you had an Octobot in hand. That has to be worth more than pretty much anything else you can do.
Oh, wow. Glory's going for full respect on the board. Oh, I guess not full respect. He left the Volpertinger alive, meaning that he doesn't really care if there's Warsong Wrangler here to buff, because it still doesn't take any good trades. I guess Glory's just completely committed to Kazakus into 5 cost and just don't bother with the draws. Gotta be Rhino, yeah.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely agree. You could take a +2/+1 buff on your Volpertinger, but again, that does not seem very relevant at all. So I imagine we're taking 5 here and looking for Rush over Divine Shield, probably?
Yeah, he'll be thinking about Rhino, so assuming the 7/6 rushes into a 2/1, then the rush on your Golem can finish off a Rhino. If he got shoot 2 minions or freeze 2, that's actually not bad. I guess shoot 2 doesn't work out if the Rhino goes into the prize plunder, which I think it will.
Yeah, you want to maximize the damage. I think, honestly, if they want to dagger your 3/4 at the end of it, you're happy with that.
Take a look at what the Golem is now.
Yeah.
Rush copy. Yeah, you'll take that.
Pretty good, pretty good. A head on board kind of forces an answer as well, because if not, a Shadow Step could be really devastating to lock down this board. But okasinnsuke has got the answers. Double piercing shot and a quick shot as well. Although I guess the question is, because Glory didn't trade it in, this piercing shot, when your opponent's at 17, soon to be even lower, it kind of wants to go into a 1 health minion, not really a 5 health minion.
It does. I think the dagger was very clever from Glory, actually, but okasinnsuke, I think, still ends up on playing it here, because otherwise the turn is completely miserable, right? He ends up challenged on board if you go for minions, and the piercing shot doesn't have a guaranteed good target for quite some time, unless he wants to play it on a Wriggling Horror. 14 still doable from hand for okasinnsuke. If we assume this next piercing shot deals 5 and the quick shot deals 3, it's just 3 hero powers away and or a top deck aim shot away. So Glory really needs to get moving now. The Shroud of Concealment very likely allows him to just play whatever he gets that with the stealth and have it stick around, but he's going contact instead. Guardian Og Merchant would be insane here to protect his contact.
Okay. Prep into the Shroud as well is not bad at all. You can always end with just Shadow Stepping your contact in order to just pop off next turn. It's probably not going to be the combo until turn 8, I would say, with 15 cards left in deck. But realistically, setting up for the combo win condition rather than the tempo win condition is probably a more efficient way of racing here.
Yeah, I don't think his minions are quite durable enough. Very likely just leaves him weaker to second Rhino. If he does leave minions on board, he has to play them all at once, right? So that it's not just a formality for okasinnsuke to clear. Okasinnsuke going to go for a Mankrik Horror hero power, which I agree with, even though the Horror is not guaranteed to stick around and thus he might lose a piercing shot target. Glory is almost certainly going to leave some like fragile minions on board. This Octobot top deck is exactly what Glory was looking for. It's time to go off now. I think you take the mana rather than the draw. Yeah, here we go. 4 mana left to work with 3 Battlecry minions in hand. This could be the 2-turn setup.
It could be. I mean, depending on what we see, he could try and cheese it out in one turn, right, with just Orc Merchant Garrot. He's got the second Octobot as well. This is a lot of mana that he can work with on this turn. My goodness, you can just go Octobot, Orc Merchant and play everything.
Yeah, I wanted to do that. Glory's holding back though. I mean, obviously he's not guaranteed to get all the Garrots going through, right? But he would get a wider board and the setup for the next turn. I think I preferred that in terms of racing, but maybe Glory's found a way to guarantee it for next turn. I don't think it's guaranteed because he doesn't have the other field contact in hand right now, although granted, it's not easy for okasinnsuke to deal with it. Worth noting that if Piercing Shot works the way that Unstable Shadow Blast does, then it should still deal 5 hitting a Divine Shield, I think.
Yes, I'm pretty sure it should. But at the same time, are you going... So if you go Piercing Shot, Quick Shot, you deal 5, 7, bring them down to 5, and then Trampling Rhino can almost certainly finish things off on the following turn?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is, if he leaves the field contact up, he is certainly dead the next turn.
Does feel that way, yeah. Obviously, there's board space issues that maybe you can exploit, but I think with double Penflinger in hand, if your opponent's playing effectively, it still just always gets there.
Yeah. okasinnsuke just a bit of mana off from lethal right now. But because it's not there. Okay, if he wasn't sure of the interaction, do it in this order. It still works.
Yes, true. Good point. Don't make it any harder on yourself.
Although I don't think Trino tramples over Divine Shields, only Piercing Shot for some reason. I will double check
Obviously.
that, though.
Obviously. That just makes perfect sense. But the thing now is that not only are there Garrots in play, there's that Mask of Cthulhu in play, which with double spell damage allows for 4, 12, 16...
a lot.
Like 20 damage straight away. Oh, plus the second Garrot.
Yeah, and then the minions on board. It's still just lethal. Glory manages it in a half combo, half board game plan. I mean, the Garrots were necessary, but the Mask of Cthulhu was the real MVP here.
Man, a pretty cool game. A very, very cool game. I do agree at the end of that penultimate turn, Glory could have been a tad more ambitious because even if your opponent does manage to mop up one of your spell damage minions, you don't have to play them both on that turn, and he could have just drawn so many cards. Like, honestly, I think it was possibly lethal at that point with double 0 mana Garrot or one mana Garrot and 1 0 mana 1. But either way, his line of play does keep him almost certainly alive, and then I think he correctly realized towards the end, especially after he's seen the Mask of Cthulhu, which admittedly did come after his decision to not play the second Octobot, that he was looking at very, very likely lethal.
Yeah, if he had not discovered any additional damage or card draw there, let's say he got secrets as an option, then he was in quite some trouble. So I do think Glory could have taken that opportunity to go for, I mean, far from guaranteed immediate lethal, but he knew that he was not likely to be dead on the backswing, right? So he could have gone for spell damage on one Octobot, spell damage on another Octobot, Divine Shield on the field contact, completely fill up the board and play a couple Garrots, which kind of leaves okasinnsuke at an impasse where if you kill the field contact, it means you're leaving up the spell damage minions. If you kill the spell damage minions, Glory can draw all his Garrots left with the field contact. I think that was maybe slightly better, but it's really tough to make those decisions in the heat of the moment. And one way or another, Glory still found a line with the additional damage discover. It's also worth noting that the Penflinger has made it back to their list. Alutamu, Glory, and Possessi. Last week they were running double Penflinger, 1 Foxy Frog. They've cut the Foxy now for the 1 Thief, and it's come in huge for Glory here.
It has, and in all honesty, I'm just happy that we're discussing ways for players to optimize their chances at lethal with Garrot Rogue, rather than how could this player not have thrown with Garrot Rogue. I feel like we've come a long way in just 1 week, where it's nice to be discussing the how could a good play be even better, or how could a good game have been maximized instead, rather than just trying to salvage from the rubble of thrown Rogue lethals. But for the final game, potentially, getting ahead of myself, of this series, it is going to be the Hunter once again for okasinnsuke, saying 3rd time's the charm. He's just bashing his head against a wall, trying to get this Face Hunter through. And against the Hybrid Brute OTK Demon Hunter, while I think it's very arguably a favorable matchup because it's still an aggro deck against a deck that doesn't have that much removal. It's a single immolation or a list for Glory, which could definitely hamper him in this one. Honestly, the more I've played it, the more I just don't mind this Demon Hunter against aggro. I think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it is. Honestly, there's very little differences from this list compared to usual OTK Demon Hunter. There is the 2 Brutes, of course, which take the place of I-Beam. I think that's the most relevant cut when it comes to the Face Hunter matchup, because a lot of the time you do need to have a variety of removal tools. If they've gone with, say, Curve Out with Initiate into Mancrypt, you do need I-Beam for that shape of board. If they go for the Volpertinger Demon Companion type of board, you need the Immolation Aura, and in almost every situation you need to swing back with a big Fell Scream Blast. So losing one of those tools in the form of I-Beam maybe hurts the hybrid Demon Hunter, but then again, they do just have Brutes, which is another way of fighting back versus aggro if you're able to get that draw going early. For Glory though, the list only has 1 Immolation Aura, which worries me slightly in the matchup, but by no means do I think he's in a bad spot. I think the list is still capable of getting this done.
Agreed, yeah, and I think it's very interesting to compare this matchup for the hybrid Demon Hunter to Face Hunter when compared to Shadow Priest, because obviously the Shadow Priest has much stickier boards, much higher level of disruption, which can be really annoying as the Brute Demon Hunter. Divine Shields are really annoying, as you said, for when you want to go for a big Fell Scream Blast. The dormant minions put in the middle from the Homunculus can split them up, so it's harder to get the 3 targeted minions. And of course, the Lucia is just an absolute nightmare, but they lack the burst damage. And the weird thing is that this OTK Demon Hunter, or the hybrid version, really lacks a lot of healing. It is just that Fell Scream Blast that can get there. And so for the Hunter, even though it's harder for them to stick a board, again, they make up for that with the huge amount of burst, which can, of course, go over the top of Brutes. So for Glory, it either needs to be an extremely early Brute turn in order to get them down before the damage can seep through, or a monstrous Fell Scream Blast turn to heal up all the damage he will be taking from the burst spells.
And the Fell Scream is a bit harder to maneuver in the mid game because this list has also cut the Talented Arcanist. That's the other big exclusion aside from I-Beam. You are running the Guild Traders, which fulfill the role of spell damage, but it's much more expensive to do so in the early game prior to quest completion. And I don't think this is a matchup where you can necessarily just go for the turbo quest and hope to get there with a timely purchase, because the Hunter probably races you down by then. Glory with a full mull, you'd have to expect, other than the quest, of course. Oh, sorry, that was already post-Mulligan, and he ended up with Il'gynoth in the far left.
Wow,
That's a disaster.
I didn't even see that either. That is a disaster. This hand sucks.
Does have Moarg, which is honestly a decent card to tempo out versus Hunter.
Right.
It's not immune, but if they spend their turn quick-shotting it, that's kind of a win for the Demon Hunter, I think. I think he's got to go for it with nothing better to do.
Oh. There's just something
better to do.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, this just really cleans up his hand now. He can go, obviously, with the second swing, Acrobatics to complete the quest on 3. And then you're approaching the kind of game plan that can actually get Brutes down around turn 4 or 5, which could be quick enough. Maybe. This is a very aggressive hand for okasinnsuke, and it's following up all this minion presence with a lot of burn as well.
Yeah, it's the perfect balance that okasinnsuke's hit here. It's looking scary for Glory. Even if he hits the Immolation Aura, still has to tank 4 damage from the Initiate, and he hits Moarg, so this is just gonna be a quest completion turn. Nice job killing the Volpertinger over the Martel Cup.
Indeed. Getting... Ooh, okay. Okay, discounted Moarg, discounted Fell Scream Blast. There's something brewing here.
Yeah, I mean, even if he ends up playing the Moargs for tempo, that's 4 damage AoE on 3 things, and it's 12 healing.
Yeah, that's insane.
Pretty good. For okasinnsuke, I don't necessarily know if he's in the territory where he can just aim shot face, but it's the most mana efficient play. Obviously, it represents 7 damage with hero power 10 with the quick shot next turn. So he's just thinking, if my board gets to stick again next turn, it's a 2-turn lethal setup.
Well, nice easy play for Glory, I think. We are just lapping up this board clear plus heal for 1 million.
Guess he's going to open some boxes first. Sure, philosophy. Yes, sir.
So you could
Play all three.
for 3, 6, 12. Like, you could just heal to full here. This is insane.
And end up with an enormous board that Hunter does not like to deal with. He ends up holding back on one Moarg, which, sure, he's still very far ahead, but honestly, I was into the full Moarg game plan.
Same,
like,
honestly.
This curve was looking like Il'gynoth on 6, and ask okasinnsuke to deal with it. He probably can't by that point.
Yeah, do you remember that time Glory didn't play a 1-mana 3/5 that heals you for 5? God, that was funny.
Remember when he still won the game?
Yep, I remember that very well. Obviously, Quickshot clears off the 3/5 very, very cleanly. And then you can just hero power face. I don't think that you can try and get this Quickshot to draw you a card, right? Don't you have to start clearing off these minions?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think okasinnsuke deviates to quick shot one Moarg and then play Rhino again next turn. Like, he should be thinking on average, because Glory used that many resources last turn, maybe the next turn is relatively slow or it's less likely to be a big combo turn. Also, he should know about the 1-cost Moarg still in hand, right? Because Glory played a 1-cost and a 2-cost. So if one of those cards is Moarg, it's not drawing him, and maybe okasinnsuke uses that window to get back on board. It's a flimsy hope, but best he's got, I think. Right. And Crick instead. Okay.
Ooh, close, obviously, with the skull. Do you think you're just taking the draw here? It's good. I think this allows you to now complete the quest, and very much so when you draw the Spectral Sight as well.
Yeah, even without it, the double jump and the Peddler, like you said, right?
Yeah.
And Glory winning on all fronts here. Didn't even need a Brute.
So I think you go double jump now and then trade in order to try and hit Brute, right? To maximize your chances of doing so by drawing an Outcast card first. He's just going with the full board clear instead with the hero power, which I guess is reasonable. Corralling all your card draw into one turn is often what you want to do with this deck.
And for okasinnsuke, the Rhino into the 2/1 Moarg seems like the best usage he's ever going to get from the Rhino. Obviously, it still leaves a Moarg on board, but you just kind of say they don't have the other Fell Scream, it's fine, so they don't get more healing from it. It's not fine, but you gotta believe, you know?
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, the real problem for Glory actually is that although he's very far ahead on board, he will be able to play Kurtrus in 2 turns time 100%. It's that he's still lacking that healing. With only one Fell Scream Blast left in the deck and no Illidari studies either, it could actually start to run low on healing. So if okasinnsuke can just survive, dodge the Brutes for a few turns, it's not out of the question that he could get there.
Is it dumb that I really just want to drop Il'gynoth this turn? Trade the Moarg in? How does Il'gynoth die? It looked so good. Okay, but now that he's drawn the Brute, sure, that's even more pressure with the philosophy as well.
Oh, so you can double jump, which just discounts you a mana, so now you can go for philosophy plus the double Brute, assuming you hit enough card draw.
No, that's
is
blocked.
annoying. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could play... Oh, you can go philosophy...
And the Aura, yeah.
Aura, yeah, exactly, to draw 2 cards. It deletes your board, but I think you would very happily do that to play double Brute.
Oh, but the order means that the philosophy would copy the Moarg first, so you're not actually getting double Brute.
Oh, true! Oh, that's so annoying.
Let's just stop with our first world problems maybe and just play Brute while we're at 20 health and okasinnsuke has no board and Kurtrus next turn. That wins.
Dude, that is not very Brute of you.
Okay, I guess he's still just gonna take the 2 draw. Sure. Even though it's just 1 Brute. It's another Moarg in hand.
Yeah.
And extra cards. He's just winning on all fronts. Again.
He surely is.
Late. These neophytes are so late.
Okay, it draws a card though off the quick shot. He's been setting this up for a long time with his incredibly conservative use of the quick shot. He should be able to get it next turn at least.
Yeah, I do like the hero power over the draw here. He's very likely able to dump whatever card he gets off the top and then still draw the quick shot. So he weaves in another hero power on average. But kind of a formality. It's just not winning.
It's not indeed. Yeah, I mean, you probably don't play a Moarg here because you don't want to let them like piercing shot your brute. But even so, like he's homing in on lethal here, is basically the point I'm trying to make with Il'gynoth, double 1-mana Moarg. It's probably not his win condition. You can just get there by drawing 1,000,000 cards and then healing for 1,000,000 off the Fellscream Blast. But either way, there's just multiple avenues to victory for Glory.
And for okasinnsuke, he's forced to quick shot the brute here, I'm sure, because he doesn't have enough burst in his deck that he can draw over 2 turns for this to just completely go face and get there.
Yeah, agreed.
Attacking.
Demon
Everything's too slow.
Companion? Yeah, like you kind of have to go for this and hope for Kolek to get the attack buff. Oh, that's the worst one!
Would have settled for another Rafa as well to push 6 face and the hero power, but nothing doing for okasinnsuke.
That one stings, and now you can draw 1,000,000 cards if you want to. You can go Moarg, Fellscream if you want to. Everything wins the game.
Yep.
Or you can do both.
I see.
I'm just watching the pretty green lights.
Look at all the colors. Oh, yeah. Oh. Brute him, dude.
All he has to do is play the Fellscream. Honestly, even if he doesn't, there's no way he's dead from 11.
Oh, and the thing is that okasinnsuke knows that there's Moargs in hand. If he's been keeping track, because the first one he knows was copied, and then the second one he also will have been able to figure out was copied. It's just whether or not there's a Fellscream there. Is he not even playing it?
Wait, doesn't okasinnsuke have an out now if he doesn't? Okay, he'll play it, right? He'll play it. Play the Fellscream.
Surely play it. Yeah.
Because otherwise he has a top deck quick shot out into aim shot.
Right. The slowest, cruelest way to make your opponent concede, but it's gonna do it. Okasinnsuke throws it down. 3 times he tried with the Face Hunter, 3 times he lost with the Face Hunter. This aggro strategy he's going for that most other players clearly have completely dismissed this meta is just looking incredibly weak. This Face Hunter is simply not a very strong archetype at the moment. You have to have such a strong target to make it work.
Yeah, it did work out for okasinnsuke yesterday, but admittedly the win he took versus Dawn could maybe have been mitigated by some faster field contact plays from Dawn. The Face Hunter, I'm honestly not sure what its good matchups are that are left other than Druid, like Anaconda Druid, which I don't think is a read you can really make on this meta. But then again, Alan did go 2-0 with a full aggro strategy in the group stages, and he'll be on our next match still with a Face Hunter in the lineup. And he has got himself a Druid in Surrender's lineup to possibly prey upon. So maybe Alan's been queuing the right opponents, or maybe he's been doing something different. Can't wait to see.
But man, for Glory, that was just a tasting menu of all the hot decks right now. Warlock, Rogue, Demon Hunter, all just demolishing the Hunter, and played, I think, for the most part, very, very well by Glory. We still disagree with that penultimate Rogue turn that he took, but the Demon Hunter, I think, was gorgeously piloted. He knew exactly what to go for in what was admittedly not the hardest game in the world, because he did get bailed out with the double Moarg into the Fellscream Blast to be able to clear up the board, and then with the Warlock as well. Just very clean play on the delete lock. Sees him through to the semi-finals. A big boon for Glory, who was